Hi, it's Paulie here. With Japanese black cherry wine. Nectar. I am one happy bunny. I'm a very happy bunny because I've always been a huge fan of the Traveller role-playing game. It was our go-to when I was sort of a teenager, all through my 20s. We did a ton of Traveller-y stuff. It was an adaptable system that we could use for absolutely anything. And of course, there have been Mongoose editions and so on, which have moved onwards from the originals and so on. But one of my favourite movies has always been Aliens 2. Aliens, I love it to death. And there are role-playing games for this, you know, from Free League, and there's the Alien system at the moment. But a group has done essentially a Aliens-inspired Traveller setting. It's rather brilliant. And I spent a ton of money on getting all this stuff. So, it's called Hostile. You can get this hard copy on Lulu. 2 books initially. There's rules and there's a setting. So, Hostile. Hostile, the idea has been to take their inspiration from what they're calling retro tech movies. So, Alien. Aliens, Outland, remember the Sean Connery movie? Also, things like Blade Runner. That kind of unpleasant future, realistic future. This has elements of cyberpunk and elements of horror, but they are styling it as sort of retro tech because it doesn't have Star Trek The Next Generation, shiny touchscreens and clean computers. So the idea is the tropes of essentially industrial sci-fi. It's working space. It's deadly. You can blow holes through the sides of starships if you wantonly set off weapons inside starships. Decompression is not your friend. This is a working environment. Therefore, it looks like one. There are black and yellow warning strips to tell you that you're in dangerous machinery areas. There are icons up on the walls to tell you, vac suits beyond this point, danger, lasers in operation in this area, beware, loading equipment. It's oily, it's grungy. People actually work here. People are wearing boiler suits. People are in the union complaining about working conditions. People are complaining about the spiders getting into their suits. So it's not shiny sci-fi. It's got hard sinews to it. So what they've done is they have set up a future history, and they've set up a beautiful environment. They've taken our surrounds, turned these into star maps. Now the idea is there's no nice space out there, so humanity has gone into outer space, but there are no magic Earths. There are no places that are magically 1G and the air is great. They say you can have 100% breathable atmosphere, you can have near-Earth gravity, you can have tolerable temperatures, you can have a lack of radiation, ultraviolet, or, horrendous volcanic activity. Pick 2. So anywhere you go that's not Earth is going to suck. But that's okay, because Earth sucks, because the population's up to 10 billion. They've collapsed the environment. So what's happened is, essentially, mankind's moved out to strip mine space. It's incredibly expensive. You don't jump into your free trader and hair off. No, it's like Aliens. Ships are really expensive. They're owned by giant corporations and governments. You are normally just average Joes. And in fact, this was in Traveller as well. Ships cost hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's not a place that you venture into for fun. There are no tourists. In any given place, people are there for a reason. There's a resource that they are mining or creating to take back to service Earth, or they are service populations that are there to make sure that starships work, that navigation functions. Now, they've got faster-than-light drives. The faster-than-light drives operate by getting to hyperspace points which are found by carefully scanning out a system. This takes years to find these things, and a system can have several, but these are weak points where a hyperspace engine on a ship can basically establish a link to another very specific exit point in another system. Discovering these entry and exit points is difficult. It's done by drone normally, because the exit points are quite likely to dump you out into a star or near a super gas giant or whatever. So lots of trial and error in finding these things. Now, anyone that experiences hyperspace awake goes stark raving mad. So therefore you go into hypersleep. You are frozen for the trip. Things also take a lot longer than in Traveller. Now, one thing I like is your ships use reaction mass. So ships have fuel, and to achieve things requires burn. You have a fuel budget for your ship, and you have to plan on how you're using the burn. So if you're taking off from a surface, burn. Travelling out to a nearby jump point, burn. A further jump point, more burn. Travelling from that place to a habitable planet, more burn. Landing, etc. Why would you take auxiliary ships? Well, because shuttles have their own burn budgets and go up and down. So for instance, if you've got a large vessel, you may not take off from a planet and land on one. You'll go from orbit to orbit and you'll communicate by shuttle. Or preferably just hook up to some kind of orbital facility so you're not wasting fuel. You can skim in gas giants. What I love is they've done things like the Earth system being quite inhabited. You can skim for hydrogen from our gas giants, preferably Saturn, because Jupiter's radiation belts are too heavy. But there's Saturn traffic control, so many people do it. You have to book, otherwise you'll crash into each other. And it's correct, it's an ordered universe. There's traffic control, there are traffic lanes. You should register your flight plans before you go. And so, engine-wise, what we've got is something that has jumped off from the Traveller engine. Now what they've done is, it's what you'll remember. Good old 2d6, roll an 8 or higher, and you succeed. Skills are levels, you add the skill level to the number you roll on the dice, therefore making it easier to achieve things. If I have a skill level of 2, I add that to my dice. If I roll a 6 with a skill level of 2, my result is therefore an 8. Haha, I have achieved. There are difficulties which subtract from your dice roll, so difficult tasks and so on make that harder. Now what they've done is they've decided that as you're generating characters, you can decide on the sort of campaign that you're going to have. Discuss it with the umpire, discuss it with everyone else. If you're having a military style campaign, you're going to make military style characters. If you're going to be explorers, then you're going to have exploration type characters. If you're going to be like facing colonial problems, then you have colonial style characters. If you're going to be haulers and this sort of thing. And there are a menu of different careers that you might want to take for each of these. The reason they're asking you to choose is the fact that once they get into campaign styles, they point out that if people have taken massively combat oriented characters, well, they are highly suited to that. But if you've got people in that group who are not, then they can't face the scenario. They're going to die. That's just, this is highly specialized stuff. So, like normal Traveller, you pick careers for yourself, and you've got the usual charts that you can roll on with your advanced education charts and so on, where you roll, you take terms, and you gain skills. What I like here is they have also done a designed character option. You get a number of skill points and so on, and you just pick what you want as skills. You have to take them from the menus that you would normally roll on for the careers, but you pick them. I like that, actually, because the random rolls would give you things like an engineer who works on engines, but not that bit of an engine. What? I'm a fighter pilot. I can really fly fighters. Can't operate the guns though. What? So this allows you to make more coherent characters. Also allows you to cooperate with the party a little bit and kind of cover each other's weak spots a bit. I quite like that. And of course it's humans only, it's human-centric, and off you go. Off you go and you adventure. But the other changes that they've made is to the combat systems. What they've done is they've kind of broken potential combats up into different styles. Now, they've got, melee and brawling, of course, but the normal RPG style combat where you see a target, you've got a weapon, you roll to hit with the target, and then you do, damage on the weapon, his armor subtracts from the damage that you've done, etc. That's all in there. But what you can do with this is, there's also that moment when there's guys concealed in cover and fire's coming down on you, and you can't really see people. So if you bump into someone in a corridor and you open fire, great. But if you're in the jungle and suddenly you're ambushed and there's someone firing from down the trail and there's fire coming from that hilltop over there, you're not really firing at individuals. So they've got this area fire system where you pick zones and you pour fire into it. So there's this lovely kind of interestingly abstracted system where the umpire then gets you to roll skill still, but he totals up a number of dice that are then rolled. He counts up the sixes, and this is kind of the number of hits that go into that area, which he can then distribute on the NPCs. There is also a system that distributes fire in this way back to the party. And so you might get a thing where you're starting to ask questions like, the fire has suddenly disappeared from the jungle up ahead. Did you kill everyone? Did they run away? So, are you getting up to have a look? Yeah, okay, someone with recon skills is going to go around and see what's there. So it brings more uncertainty. So the idea, they were trying to get a bit of the old sort of, Purple Haze, man, Vietnam into this. Need a flare? Nope. So there's some uncertainty. I quite like this. It brings in auto-fire weapons. And in that, it's got like a bit of a sense of things like Predator in it. Something's invisible out there, and, did you get it? I don't know. We poured fire in there. High volume fire things as opposed to really accurate sniper weapons can be useful. So, this is the guns. Now, obviously in this sort of thing, there is an expectation of xenomorphs. Yes and no. A lot of these planets have got unpleasant creatures on them, and they have a very fine selection of pre-done creatures and something very similar to the good old Traveller animal generation table. So you can generate your own hostile environments because people are going out and trying to find woods and timber, and particularly oil to turn into plastics, and rare things to turn into ceramics and mobile phones. But they have got some things that approximate alien and so on, and they've got some wonderful ideas for creating your own threats. Predator, for instance, is something that is really just invisible. That's what makes it so hard. There's a lovely setup that they've done, laying out their world, all the corporations, all of the tech. There are androids starting to appear. Retro tech-wise, the electronics, they've basically said that things are a bit heavier and better protected, and that wireless material tends not to be used because it can be hacked too easily. Wafer-thin mobile phones and so on aren't common because EMP and also electronic pollution has become so heavy that having far more protected material is better, particularly if you're going out on starships and so on, and on alien planets, as these things are way more pulse protected. Okay, that explains the black monitors with the green writing on them. So there's a lot of space that they spend on setting up their environment, and it's good. It's one of those games where, as you read it through, they put adventure seeds all through it. They've put potential conflicts all through it. You can just see the games appearing. They've then done beautiful write-ups on the different styles of campaign you can run. Each of these, they've put their own suggestions for adventures and what can be done for each of these kind of different styles to spark you off. In the back of the rules, they've also just put 30 adventure scenarios. Boom, done. So you can pick this up, read through and play. There's also some very nice material on essentially horror science fiction. What to do to make people sweat. What things to tinker in the environment to turn this just from, I've got my my rifle and I'm just going in there and I'm going to kick E.T.'s butt, to the tension, the wariness. It gets dark, things stop working, isolation, the unknown factor of, if you're up against a xenomorph, what does it do? How does it do it? Why are these people dying? What is this infection? How is it spread? They've got all these kind of interesting questions. They've also got some beautiful stuff for military things. I quite like it. They said every military scenario should start off with basically a dilemma. And they got these sort of dilemmas, which are things like, oh, well, there's a new second lieutenant and he's from an old, fine military family. He really wants a medal. Or, well, you got this highly skilled sergeant's turned up. He he might be pushing drugs to some of the other squad guys. You know, so, or, well, you got this new, you got this reporter. He's being nested with you guys. Look after him. Oh, God. So everyone's got this dilemma, and then they've got, like, an actual mission. So, you know, lovely little push-offs for cooking up your own stuff. It's full of drugs. It's got its own wonderful beer and consumer products. It's got adverts for things all through here. Not cherry wine, unfortunately. That's mine. So this is our basic setting stuff. But what they've done is they've done a gorgeous job of giving you additional material. So gun locker. Gun technology, in Traveller terms, what you're looking at is they have the equivalent of pretty much advanced combat rifles. Slug throwers are in. They've got some good artwork, and there are minor differences between these things, so equipment freaks can go through and find things, but essentially the game is set in kind of the American chunk of space, so it's mostly on about American weapons. There are some lasers coming in, so you've got some lasers which are used as sort of sniper weapons. They're incredibly accurate, but they're incredibly expensive and don't drop them. You have some basic kind of plasma weapons coming in, lots of grenade stuff and so on. You've got different armors and so on. So you can go forth and kick ET's butt. They've got technical manuals, which is basically the equipment book done as a very nice slim volume. These don't cost very much. These are only like a few bucks. But if you're playing with a group, of course, people want to palm through the equipment lists while they get stuff. So separate equipment lists that you can pass around. Great idea. Hostile toolkits. This is more expansive things that you might need for, you know, very specific tools, computers, communications, these sorts of things. The rules include ship design and so on. They have very good vehicle rules. Again, everything is slightly different to Traveller and the Cepheus engine. They've put their own spin in it. I like what they've done. It's very precise, it's very concise. They've got a detailed version, and they've got kind of a shorthand version that you can do to just get the action done if it's not key to your story. So we've got books on explorers. These are things on how to scout systems, what your crew is, how to find sponsors, how to scout and discover things on spacesuits, how to explore and how to explode, environmental problems, and puts this in way more detail. Alien breeds. We do have like a Xenomorph handbook. Crew Expendable. Love that title. Fantastic. Which is essentially a cargo hauler's sort of handbook for these sorts of those sorts of, you know, alien scenarios. They've got some law enforcement background if you were like inspired by Blade Runner, and we do have the equivalent of like androids that have run loose and human clones that are run loose, so we've got kind of the, you know, track down the replicants. We've also got the Marine Corps handbook. The Marine Corps handbook is for those of you who, you know, want to get out there and do that military thing. That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over. So it's got how US Marines are organised. God help us. Their weapons, their equipment in the scenario, all of their different vehicles and so on, done in more detail than in the main rules. And there's some quite nice artwork through all this. A lot of it is CGI done. It's not, you know, it's not movie quality. It is absolutely everything you need. There's beautiful little, you know, tilt rotors. There's absolute suckage on other planets. So look, I think it's a splendid piece of work. It really is, because it's got that kind of grunge. It's got that working space. It's hostile. It could kill you at any minute. You must be careful. There are corporations out to get you. There are, you know, terrorist organizations. There are, you know, it's a dangerous space. But so the question would be, why would you play this rather than, say, the Alien RPG? Well, the reason I would pick this, for one thing, its scope. It's not narrowly locked into something like Aliens. This has taken its inspiration from a genre So within this genre, you can play with things. You can be space marshals. You can be Marines doing bug hunts, or you can be like having jungle wars and fighting terrorists out in the jungle. You can be someone tracking down murderers, hunting down replicants. You can be haulers. You can fight those xenomorphs. But you can also be out there exploring systems. It does everything that Traveller ever did, but kind of reins it in and makes it a bit more tense. It makes it a bit more grungy. It does make it more dangerous. Now, what they have also added is some very nice tension rules. As things happen, like you face violence, you take stress. As people get murdered, you take stress. Stress damage is very important, and recovering that is very important as well. It's a nice little extra bit that I haven't seen in other things of the Traveller genre. But again, this works not just for your sort of Aliens style scenario, it works for a murder mystery, or it works for a haulage thing, or something where you're in space battles and so on, and the ship is damaged and now you're floating, you're trying to somehow survive. It works for people who are marooned. It works for explorers. So I think it's got more scope than a very, what would you call it, product specific game like the Aliens role-playing games. Look, this is excellent work. If you're a Traveller fan, or if you're just a science fiction fan, or like an SF horror fan, I would really suggest you take a look. Hostile, really fine work, and yeah, I think it's going to be my Traveller variant of choice from now on. So yeah, highly recommend that you go out there and have a look. Cheers!